Ms. Hall. Financial review, mid-year financial review, Laura Hill.
What I'm doing here. Having technical difficulties.
Robbie, tell us what's all going on. It's getting worse and worse, they say.
Yeah. Transit just reported a vehicle overturned on the road.
Was it a transit vehicle?
Not one of theirs, but they were.
All right, it just looks weird on mine. Sorry.
School trip.
They evacuated West.
Yeah, some type, I don't know if it's some type of gas leak or had a lot of people.
The gas line maybe broke.
Health and Human Services. How many people fell ill?
17.
Got transported?
7 excavators sitting over there digging. I hope it's not us.
Hope you didn't cut the line, baby Paul. I hope you didn't cut the line, Paul.
Okay, good afternoon. So today we're just going to talk a little bit about where we are first 6 months of the fiscal year as it relates to revenues, expenditures, and property motor vehicle tax, and then our sales tax. We've only received 4 months worth at this point, so
How far are they behind? So
it's a 3-month lag.
So there were 3 months.
Yeah. So this slide shows the comparison between fiscal year 2019 and current fiscal year. And again, it's only 4 months worth. This represents retail sales from July through October and money that we received October through January. So as you'll notice, we're right at $4 million for the first 4 months of this year. And last year we were right there at 3.685 million. So we are up 8.54% this fiscal year, which is a good thing. Last year at the same time, 19 versus 18, we were only up 5.06%. So keep our fingers crossed. Hopefully this trend will continue, but of course there's no guarantee because there's always ebbs and flows in sales tax and refunds from governments such as ourselves and other nonprofits can impact those numbers each month. Sorry, okay. This slide shows our sales tax revenues. So the dark blue column there represents the budgeted amount, and this budgeted amount would include our current year ad valorem taxes, our prior year taxes, our motor vehicle collections, any interest and advertising that we may collect, as well as any attorney fees on delinquent collections. So last year at this time we were at 82.4% of budget for the first 6 months of the fiscal year. This year we're at 82.8%. And of course you'll notice there that last year we were at 23.5, this year we're at 25.2. So we've got about a $1.6 million gain, and that's to be expected because of course we had reval, which we had to adjust our tax rate upward. And then we bumped it on up to the 0.3747 to cover the school needs.
$1.5 million, so that's right.
Yep, it's right on target.
Yeah, on the money.
But this don't include on the sales tax revenue as far as that goes.
No, they don't include
They
sales.
don't-
That's
they
just
got-
ad valorem.
Yeah, this has one, but you go back to sales tax, it don't include Christmas, it don't.
Right, exactly. It was just July through October
just
retail
July,
sales,
yeah.
yeah. So yeah, I said it's a great trend. So yeah, Christmas sales should be positive numbers when we receive those numbers for November and December sales in this month in March. So yeah, we're tracking good there. This next slide just shows overall general fund revenues. So again, the darker blue column shows your budget. The lighter blue represents actuals. So this time last year, we were at 58.1% of revenues collected. This year, we're a little higher at 59.7. So again, kind of ties back to that, you know, the difference there between revenues is mainly that sales tax, well, the uptick in sales tax as well as the uptick in property tax collections due to the increased rate. Went too far. And then our next slide is our general fund expenditures. Again, dark blue represents budget, light blue represents actual. This time last year, we were at 45.2% expended. This year, we're at 44.4%. And again, if you compare our revenues last year at this time versus expenditures at the same time, revenues exceeded expenditures by 6.8 million. This year, our revenues exceed our expenditures by 8.4 million. So there again is that 1.6 million difference, which ties back to the property tax. And then the last slide is what Mitch shared earlier, just showing our current debt service. Of course, the no new debt service is factored into these numbers. And again, Mitch presented this earlier, but I know you guys always like to see it, so I threw it in there. And that's all I have, unless you have any questions.
What about updated fund balance?
I haven't made any updated fund balance projections as of yet. That will be, of course, in our budget message as we get a few more months under our belt. But, of course, we ended last fiscal year very healthily. Our unassigned fund balance finished at 23.9, which represented 47.5% of expenditures. So, you know, unassigned means it's not obligated. That's the balance that's available, you know, when you're looking at doing certain projects, just like the burn building, like I mentioned earlier. You'd committed that fund balance in a prior fiscal year, so you'll have to appropriate it either this year or next year, whenever.
That fund balance is included in 23.9. That appropriation, that's not included.
The 1.4? No, it's not. That's what I'm saying, it lapsed, so we didn't spend it because the project, you know, we're not to that point, so.
So it just rolled right up in the fund.
Yeah, it just stayed in fund balance, it just didn't move out.
Okay.
But yeah, so we're doing very healthily.
At the halfway mark, where we at on our contingency?
Contingency, that's one number I didn't write down. I'll have it Tuesday. I normally try to have it at the meetings.
We'll need that today, probably.
Oh, you'll need it today? Okay. I can go look it up. But yeah, I don't have that number right off the top of my head. Any more questions?
Thank you for a great job, Dave.
Yes, I'll email it to you.
Appreciate it greatly, y'all.
Thank you, Lord.
Thank
As
y'all.
always.
Did I keep it under 5 minutes, Paul?
You did great. You did, yeah.
4.21. All right. Moving on to section 5, operating budget. Tax software update and fiscal year 21 ad valorem revenue projections. And Miss Abby Briswell, tax administrator. That's kind of nice to say, Abby.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
It's nice to hear. Okay, the first thing I'd like to update you guys on is our request for proposal that you so graciously approved in October. Thank you to the finance staff and the IT staff and Chester. We have come up with a comprehensive RFP, request for proposal, for our software. All right, Laura.
Yeah, there you go. It's gonna look weird on the screen, but it looks right on the monitor, on mine anyway.
Okay. So this is our first, well, that's not right either, is it?
Click on the current slide. Right above the current slide. Like I said, it might look weird on your screen, but up here I think it's.
Okay, so this is our request for proposal. Did everybody receive that by email for review? I'm hoping.
did, and likewise, they got a resolution with a copy of it attached.
You did
I
not?
did. I did not even, you have it now, because it's attached to that resolution.
Okay. I have 2 paper copies if y'all want to look at it. I have a paper one.
We just didn't get it via email.
They didn't get it via email.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so, if you've had a chance to read through, do you have any questions on the form of the RFP? Anything included? Because we have to address the North Carolina General Statute 143, 129.8, the purchase of information technology goods and services. And in that, it says that it has to be awarded to the person or entity that submits the best overall proposal as determined by the awarding authority, with factors to be considered in awarding contracts to be identified in the proposal. And we have done that. It actually starts on page 7, I believe.
Give them a
Actually,
great note
page
that
4.
This is a little different than a request for bids. Request for bids on 143-129 specifies a little different procedure. The statute that Abby is recommending the county use is 143-129.8, which is specifically to address this high technology software and that sort of thing. The idea is you're able to consider things other than price, and you're able to consider expertise and the best overall proposal that is provided. It's in a sense sort of an exception to 143, 129, which call for request for bids, but it does specifically require that you give notice, just like you would on a request for bids. And anybody interested is able to come in and present their proposal.
How many companies would you off the wall project for those finalists?
4.
4.
We have met with 2. We are going to, and this has been over the last year and a half, Tyler, DevNet, and we are getting ready to meet with Bitech. There's another smaller company that may come and present, but we have not heard from them. They did, at the conference, say they would be interested, so I'm assuming they're going to, but they have not contacted us for any kind of demonstration. Bitech we're going to be seeing next week. Bitech has 28 counties out of the 100 in North Carolina. They have given us some preliminary numbers, and as well as DevNet, who only has 2 of the counties out of the 100. They're fairly new to North Carolina, but they are in Tennessee, Illinois, and I think they're in Georgia, or getting to be in Georgia. So they're trying to get into North Carolina, so their cost is fairly low to say, but I do believe they'll come in. I've gone through Bitech and DevNet. They both give me numbers anywhere from $325,000 to $500,000. That's just for the software. It does not include any of the hardware, any of the licensing, any upgrades that we'll need. And I won't know that until I do get the RFP, so that the IT department can look at it, see what will be needed.
Maybe this is a loaded question. I'm gonna ask it anyhow. This is a total different platform than what we've got. It's a
Yes.
new deal, and I understand that part. How quickly does this software evolve? And do you, and I haven't read through this, but is this thing structured so that we're gonna continue to get updates and get some longevity out of this thing? Or do you see the technology in this type software changing so fast that we're gonna need to leave this platform and go to a different platform than what I would consider a short-term, 4 years, 5-year timeframe, or what's your thought?
No, I do not, and because, I mean, as you know, the software we've been with right now has been over 30 years. And we've been able to maintain that. Unfortunately, that is not an option from coming up. The new, one of them, like DevNet. Okay, so let's take DevNet. They're just coming into the game in North Carolina. We have had people talk to their the counties in, say, Illinois where they're at. They've actually had their software for 20 years. So they are fairly good to know that in this county government software that they need to just keep progressing. They need to do all the updates, and all of them are fairly reactive to anything that needs to be upgraded so that you don't go away from that platform. So we would keep it, I mean, I'm hoping 20 years. And the gentleman that has, we're seeing next week, he's been in this for 30 years and has had a company for 30 years. So he has done the upgrades. He has changed his own platform in other counties. Everybody west of here has that one. But the DevNet one that we also went to look at, they are doing things progressive, looking to make it more efficient for the tax office to do their job. So I do not think we will be changing anytime soon.
And I'm sure you anticipate some gains in efficiency.
Yes, I do a lot.
Because I
And
know current doesn't support anything mobile, so I'm sure that this new would.
yes, I mean, this would do mobile. We do mobile now. We're one of maybe 3 counties that actually go to the field and collect data mobile and then bring it back in and download. The hope is that we will be able to go, and with the internet being what it is around here, it's hard to get service in, say, Highlands, Nantahala. What we're hoping to do at some point is be able to go to those, draw everything, do everything in the field, and have it update immediately live. That's something we want to get done, but with our current software, we can't do that.
I think you looked at what the Association of County Commissioners offer.
We did.
And
They're very expensive. Because you buy the software and then you have the support that you have to pay for. From my understanding,
who'd you talk to?
is it Catawba County? It's one of the, and Richard talked to them and did the research on them. They actually are losing counties right now. And one of the counties, I do not know which one of it is, had switched to them, and that county within 3 years has changed already. That was one of the deterrents as to why we did not go with the North Carolina Commissioners Association software.
They reworked the program. Now, I don't know. We'll find out more Friday, next Thursday, Friday. But I know that counties the ones that switched, it wasn't necessarily the platform.
They'll all be allowed to present a proposal.
Yes.
And I think what Abby's found, at least preliminarily, is the spread or the cost for this is likely to be somewhere between 400 and 1.2
Well,
million.
at the last, it was 1.4 million.
1.4 million. It could range that. I mean, there's that much range.
And that's in the initial purchase.
Yes.
A big part of this is the operations that will be let down.
Yes, you'll have the initial purchase, and then normally it's anywhere from 30,000 to 50 to 60,000 a year for
Which is right in line
support.
with what we're paying now.
Is what we're paying now. Mhm. So
We need action.
we do.
I think she would request that you pass the resolution as presented. And at that point, she's able to begin advertising, begin the process of trying to come up with best overall proposal for the county to recommend. She does have a group of employees that she would like to also have the county approve as a committee to evaluate these proposals.
I do. I have that on your screen as now. Kevin Ford, who now does our reevaluation and does our mobile software, he created that himself, kind of put together. Teresa McDowell, who's the head of our collections. Delina Raby is the head of our business personal property, real property. I mean business personal and business and personal property. Sorry. And Andy Muncy, the IT director, and myself, of course.
Having not talked about
Motion to
that.
accept the- Got a motion to accept the resolution. Got a second, motion by Commissioner Gillespie, second by Commissioner Shields. Any further discussion? Chester?
Just a comment, Mr. Chairman. This is, if you remember, those of us that's been here a pretty good while, this is where they patched and repatched the system that we've had for a long, long time.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how much money that saved us over the years, but
I would say quite a bit.
it's time that we
Move forward.
move forward.
Well, and going into the next presentation, I'd like to give you my numbers from this year. It was extremely difficult to pull a lot of things from the software because I cannot do that. There's not a report out there that does that. We have to call the person who is our IT person that supports the software, and he will have to do those for me. I'm hoping with the new software that will be a lot easier to give you. So.
Chester, do you have something?
I was just gonna say Abby and Lindsay should be commended for the work they did on this RFP.
It's
See by the
detailed.
length
It's
of it,
thorough.
it's highly detailed, and they have identified the things that they need to have in this software.
That's precisely why I asked that question to Abby about how many companies were gonna bid upon it, because I didn't want it to be too specific that it would knock down. Like I've seen that happen with fire trucks, or fire departments. All of a sudden, you only have one company bidding, because only one company in the country can do it. So,
No, and one of the things in here that will make it difficult for some to do their proposal is the field software. And not a lot of companies do it. The bigger company does it, that does the one for $6 million. But then we have 3 others that also do it. So there's going to be at least 4 that can meet our criteria.
Good job.
Thank you.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
I assumed your motion included the approval of her committee.
I would presume so.
Absolutely.
You got that, Mike? Okay. Thank you.
Okay. On to our numbers for this year. At the end of 2019, we have an assessed value, and as everybody knows, January 1st is our date that we use for the the evaluation of all property. So the assessed value of the real property was $7,748,232,812, with exclusions and exemptions of $60,789,019. We had deferments of $214,406,390, with a net taxable real property of $7,472,037,403. That gets hard to say. The personal property and business personal property and public utilities. We had the taxable personal property, but it also includes the business personal property, which was $112,226,725. The taxable utilities, $169,276,676. As you may not know or may know, our public utilities are not available until August, September of a year, so those numbers are based on the last year and adjusted. This brings me to my next slide that shows the compared to budget. Those 3 numbers are based on the 3 previous slides, and at the end we have the total of, add those together, $7,585,306,128, and our budgeted amount was $7,540,000,000. Public service companies, 169, 276, 676, and our budget was 159 million. So we did gain, and this is a gain of 55,580,804. But it's a gain. It's even though it's a less than 1% gain in our assessments for the year. And these numbers, because they are the January 1st numbers, will change due to our appeals that are coming up in April. I've given a little detail to our board cannot meet until April statutorily. This year it will be April 6th. I don't know, we have not made those dates yet. They will be done February 26th, I believe, or 20, yeah, that has changed to 26th. We have 36 applications out for appeal right now. We don't have anybody scheduled. But we still have 2 Property Tax Commission appeals from last year that have not been settled. And we did have 1,306 informal appeals last year with our reevaluation. Only 44 of those went to the board, so we're less than when we were last year with the applications that we have out. As I said before, the public service companies do not come in until August to September. I showed 2018, which was 158,904,619, and for 2019 it ended to be 169,276,676. So we did have a gain. But for the upcoming budget, it will not be available until August or September as to what those will be. Our motor vehicles, I gave you 3 years of what they were. 336 million in 2017, 356 million in 2018, and for the end of 2019, it was 382 million. Those have increased, but as Lori said earlier, any fluctuations in the economy, and that usually goes down. Our tax collections as of January, as of the end of this month, or January, there's an outstanding balance of 1,734,202. It brings us to a 94.02 collection rate. Last year at this time, there was a collection rate of 94.25, and we ended the year, 18-19 year, with a 98.3 collection rate. Any questions?
That's good, thank you.
Good.
Do you have that on, can we have that as an email?
I can email that to all of you, yes.
Thank you, guys.
I just need what you presented today.
Okay.
I got your book here.
All right, Macon County Schools, Dr. Baldwin. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me a few minutes to discuss our needs and upcoming budget for fiscal year 2021. And also want to thank you for the discussion we've had this morning about renovations of Macon Middle School and any additions that might benefit our students. This has been I think this is my 7th or 8th budget, and the interesting thing about that is that all 7 of them have been different. And this year has been very different in that as of January 27th, we finally have a budget for fiscal year 1920. So about 2 weeks ago, we learned what our budget was going to be from the state, our total budget from the state was going to be for this fiscal year, which we're already halfway through. So we're now trying to figure out what our needs are going to be for next year. We had a series of mini budgets over the course of the fall that included, salary increases for certain employees, and then on January 14th, we learned that some of our employees were going to be left out of any salary increases. And if you'll recall, last year, this board appropriated, I think it was around $100,000 to cover any cost increases, including salary increases. I think that's what.
We added 400,000 to, and that went for teachers' assistants, the STEM program,
Early college.
early college, and I think that was maybe to cover also included in that was to cover
Some of those cost
Right.
increases. And because this board was able to appropriate that amount to the school system to cover any salary increases, those employees that were left out of salary increases by the state, and the state projected a 2.5% salary increase. I think that's what they actually appropriated to other state employees, was 2.5%. But when the budget was settled on January the 14th, our clerical workers, our custodians, and our bus drivers were left out of any of those salary increases. So I had a conversation with Derek and other commissioners, and the board agreed to appropriate an amount that would allow those employees, our employees for the school system, those clerical workers, bus drivers, custodians, a 2% one-time cost of living increase. So really appreciate what the board, this board was able to do last year in terms of looking ahead and budgeting that for the school system. We would not have been able to do that had y'all not done that last year.
So, Chris, can interrupt. Does that, with that being done, did everyone in the school system realize a pay increase?
No.
Who did?
Certain teachers were able to receive a step increase. Not all teachers received a step increase, but some did. The other central office employees, directors, were left out of any salary increases.
And how did that step increase compared to what was passed in the state budget?
Depends on what level the teacher was on when they received their step. I think years 1 through 10 did not receive a step.
No, 1 through 10 is a step, and it's about $1,000 a year is what it equates to. And then 11 through 15 stays the same, and then I think 15 through 24 goes up a little bit more than 1,000. I can't remember the amount off the top of my head, and then it maxes out at 25.
So those that were not eligible for a step increase, did you cover
No,
the pay increase?
we did not.
But that's a legislative budget, right? That's not the government budget. That's a legislative budget.
Well, that's the budget we got from Raleigh.
So that's on last year's budget.
Yes, yes,
That's taking into account last year's budget.
yes. Yeah, we're operating on last year's budget for those employees.
So, sorry to dwell on this, but how many total employees is in the school system?
Depends on if you're talking about part-time and full-time, or roughly 600 employees, counting full-time, part-time.
And of those 600, how many got raises?
Oh, gosh.
Or how many got
Well, probably the
left
best way to do it would say the number of clerical and custodial and bus drivers that we covered with this rate might be the best way.
Non-certified, probably we're looking at about 185, 200.
Who did not receive.
Non-certified.
200 out of the 700 did not receive any type of raise.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Baldwin, I'd like for the board to empower myself, Mr. Bill, and you to look at mental health in our schools. We've been working on this since October, and people, we are a mess.
That's one of the 3 things that I was going to just put on your radar, looking ahead to fiscal year 2021. We met with the principals on Tuesday, and they shared their requests with us at that time. I have not shared these requests with the school board yet. I'll just give you a general overview. One of the main things that they're concerned about is serving the mental health needs of our students right now. The folks that we have in our school system, our teachers, our guidance counselors, are not equipped to deal with some of the mental health issues that we're facing today. So I really appreciate your interest in that. I know that you and Mr. Beal have been working on that, and really appreciate that.
I I'd like to bring back to the board in March. Just a little review of what's going on in our school system. I was in a meeting this morning at the high school, Meridian, the elementary schools. I've been involved with them. I'd just like you to be updated on really what is going on in mental health. It doesn't take a Sheriff Hall long to know that our schools are a reflection of our communities. And whatever's going on in communities, you have it in the school. We've looked at grandparent programs trying to come in and help. I'd just like to bring in and just talk, just to share with you, to update you just really what we're dealing with out there, what the teachers are dealing with every day, and the school administrators.
And the community.
And the community. And you're not talking about little things. You're talking about a child walking into your room or into your office and they've been cutting themselves and things like that. Well, how do you manage this? So, but I think if you allow us to do a little research more on this, at the March meeting, we can bring you up to date and just kind of get you a picture of what's going on in our school system. Mr. Ben?
And we, Dr. Ball and myself have been talking about a child psychologist and why we didn't get one. So we have reached out to several, just to give you an idea. Swain County did get one. 3 counties in the far west got one. We did not. To give you an idea, Mecklenburg got 22. Just, you know, not, of course it's a big area, but we're just as important. Regardless of your zip code, you should be available to that service. Monday we'll be meeting from 2 to 4 to see what cuts. We're going to have to sustain some major cuts. We tried to pass a resolution to this board and it failed about those cuts, but those cuts are now coming home to roost. $564 million in cuts to mental health in the past 5 years. So, and that's affected the school system. A lot of that's been out of your school system, Dr. Baldwin. So we're going to have that meeting on Monday. We did get a 3-month reprieve from the governor's office on 2% of that money, and so we're going to see what that. We hope the health department will be there on Monday, and it affects everything. So it affects the school. So, but on the school psychologist, we're going to have that discussion again next Thursday in Raleigh, and we hopefully. But what me and Mr. Shields been working on is we've got to get some help in our school system.
No, I appreciate it.
And via being on that board, we're going to have that discussion Monday also, and we anticipate, as you can see with the emails, things have perked up quite a bit since some of us got involved. So
Thank you.
we'll continue to do so. You, as far as the funding goes in your budget, I can't find no money there, no extra money, Dr. Baldwin. You may be able to find some, but I don't see no extra money there for this particular.
Well, and to that point, you know, 2 years ago we applied for a school safety and security grant that paid for an additional SRO and a school psychologist. And traditionally those grants have been good for 2 years, and then in August we learned that that grant was not going to cover the school psychologist that we hired last year for this school year. We learned about that in August. We already have that person in place. We also then learned that school psychologists would be picked up out of our instructional support line item, PRC 007. And then when some of those mini budgets were finally passed in, I think, November, we learned that we did not receive any additional money for school psychologists. So that person's in place, so, you know, we'll have to manage that within our budget somehow this year without that state funding that we planned on.
I just feel like bringing some data that we've received and you've received and bringing just to update the board.
Okay.
Just what kind of situation we're in. And I think we're bringing the problem. The big job is trying to find the solution. And that's where you've got some ideas and things like this. And but we need to bring you the problem and try to propose solutions to that and options of solutions. And,
But along with that, Mr. Chair, I think you'll agree we need, that Dr. Ball and this board needs to know the admirable job that your staff does the best they can with the demand that's placed on them. I don't care if it's from K through 3 or through the high school. I think the staff, with the burden that's placed on them, the situation they're put in, does an outstanding job with what they can.
I'll make sure to pass that on to
And
them.
they're limited on what they can and can't do. But that's one of those things that it's not like digging a ditch. You can't look behind you every day and say, boy, I've done something that. But you gotta keep
That's
working.
true.
I just
But
need
now the
to,
school board's involved in some of this, isn't it? Does that responsibility lie within there?
I think as liaisons, is that what you're asking?
No, the school board, the elected school board. These issues you're talking about mental health, et cetera. Where does the school board, what role do they play in that, making decisions on
I
that?
think they make all of those decisions, except the funding of it, obviously.
Yeah,
They gotta have
that's
some
our role.
dollars.
Right. And that's part of the solution that, we brought, we need some additional funds and things like that, but I'd like to know why, what we're dealing with here, reason that there's extra funds being requested in this year's budget. And you kind of have a picture of what's out there. It's been out there for me since October of this year, just Dr. Ball allowed me to go into the schools and talk with the principals and Ron and I both talked with the other people, and it's something that you just need to know what's out there in order to justify if there's expenditures or somewhere like that, you can do it. But yes, the school board has a role in it, but like Ms. Jones said, the funding part comes back into our arena.
The state has a huge role in this. And they need to step up and fund it like they should fund it. That's a fact.
I agree. Yeah, and there are two other items that I need to make you aware of. Along with the recession, of course, came some cuts to the school system over the course of the past 10 years. Two of the places that we implemented cuts back in between 2011 and today were in our art and music programs. Particularly at the middle school level. We've got several parents in the community, and along with school employees, that would like to see art and music back at the middle school level, and improved arts education throughout our school system. And I can't argue with that. I think that those folks are planning to. They've already met with the school board. I think they're planning on meeting with you to let you know of their concerns. Along with those cuts to music and art, come issues with regard to space. Due to the new class size legislation that was passed in 17-18, in fiscal year or school year 2021, Cartucca and East Franklin will no longer have an art music classroom. That will become a regular ed classroom, and art and music will be taught off of the cart. Now that's what we'll see in 2021. The real issue in terms of immediate space needs for classrooms is going to come in 21-22. At that time, our individual class size maximum will drop by 2 students, and our LEA average will go to the funding ratio, which means that in first grade, our LEA average can't exceed 16 students, and it can't exceed 17 in second and third. This means we're going to have additional classrooms, especially in school year 21-22. Not only will we not have art classrooms, we simply don't have the classrooms to meet what's going to be mandated by the class size legislation. We don't have that space today, looking ahead to 21-22.
So you have 25 second graders, you got to have 2 teachers. Right?
That's correct.
You got to have a space for that extra.
That's correct.
You split it there.
If we have, and if we have 18 second graders,
Right.
we'll have to have two teachers.
It's crazy.
And this board, I should also know the study that was just authorized by the legislature was looking at rural schools. And that report came back, they need right now, I mean, what we're behind on just on rural schools is like $80 million is what we're behind now. And of course, they authorized the report, but then said the report was wrong once they got it, but that's a different story. But that's where we're at in education in North Carolina, and especially in rural communities. And it hit all of us, but and we've had this conversation with Dr. Ball, and it comes to a point where the county, you know, I think we do as much as any county, but there's going to come a point if they keep passing this down that you know, and you have to shuffle your money too, Dr. Ball. So it's not a good. There's
Well,
no easy solution.
and I completely agree with that. You know, I come to you with requests that, you know, I certainly agree that they should be paid for by the state, but that's not happening. And our students are getting left behind because of that. You know, we're not able to provide that art and music education to our students that we once were able to. And, you know, a lot of people in the community feel like that we're not graduating the same quality of students that we were at one time. And it's difficult to argue with that when we look at how we were funded 20 years ago compared to today.
Other school districts with arts and education, how are they handling it?
It depends on the school system, and it depends on, you know, I think that every school system's handling it differently. Some may not have it in certain schools, like as the situation we have here in Macon County right now.
Yeah, I hate for us to get into curriculum choosing and curriculum funding. Last year, I think we got pulled in a little bit when we had in-depth discussions on the STEM program. Absolutely a critical program, but I don't think it's this. You know, we were down to, we're going to fund a one curriculum. I don't think that's our role as overall assistance in funding may be an issue we have to deal with, but for us to choose particular curriculums, art, education, STEM, whatever, I think that's school board, school staff.
Well, and you know, I understand what you're saying, and it gets confusing because I think that the first gentleman that you had presenting made a note of how North Carolina compares with other states and how Macon County compares to other counties and other states across the nation who don't fund public schools. The state expects counties to pick up more of the burden in other states, and across the state of North Carolina, each county funds the public education system within that county differently. So you have a wide range of public education in the state of North Carolina. And it's up to you and the school board to decide what the quality of that education is. And that's through funding and that's through policy making from the school board.
The STEM program was a recommendation of the school board and of you, Dr. Ball, correct?
Yes, sir.
Business Advisory Council, UEC.
And it comes down to this board deciding what is it, what do we want our graduates to come away from Macon County schools with? Do we want them to be at the average school in the state of North Carolina, or do we want to compare them to Hyde County in particular, or Charlotte Mecklenburg? I mean, that's up to you. It's my job to provide you with the best information that I can, and then you guys have to make the decision on how to fund it. The board has to decide how they want to make the policies that affect that.
At the end of the day, if we are not providing our kids with a level of education that they can compete in a global environment, then we've sold them short.
Amen.
And that's what it comes down to. It's competition, and as Carl pointed out, it's not just across the nation now, it's across the world. And how do we want to compete? Average, below average, or do we want to be the best?
Yeah,
You talk about a $77 million for a jail system, you know, that's money coming up there on the other end. We've got to put some money down here in the mental health part to try to keep that from happening. And I know there's a lot of things out of our control, but it is definitely something that we have to pay attention to, because it's there. It's in your classroom. It's every day.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. You know, I don't have some of these kids that we're seeing these issues with. I will be retired before they graduate, but they've got some issues that we will be paying attention to long after I've retired. You know, and I can't explain the root cause of these issues. I don't know why we're having them as early as we're having them now. I really don't, and I struggle with that. The question is, for me, how do we address those issues so we can educate them? That's the question for me as a superintendent. The question for me as a citizen of Macon County, and that's where I'm going to die, I hope, is how are we going to treat these kids so that they're productive citizens, not just with an education, but with the ability to not add to that justice center that.
And you're charged with dealing and evaluating and trying to correct us. That same attitude and mental health issues spills over into the general populace. It's not just isolated to an educational system.
No, it absolutely is not.
Workforce, everything else is dealing with this. You need to talk with them. They're struggling.
It's a culture shift.
But on the bright side, some counties have just said we can't do nothing. A lot of counties. The bright side is I think this county will at least make a valid attempt of what we can do. Once you recognize the problem, it's your problem. So when you've been involved as long as I have, it's not easy, but but these younger kids is just amazing. And that's within the last 5 years.
It really is. I mean, you know, Ms. Shields and I were talking about where these issues have come from, and it's been a surprise to us.
And it's not just from the low economic.
No, it's not.
It's the whole.
It's hard to put your finger on what the root cause of this is.
And the other thing the board needs to know, it's not just kids that are struggling in school. This kids with 3.8 grade point averages, 4.0 grade point averages, very intelligent kids. But that's another thing on our plate.
I appreciate y'all listening to my needs or the school system needs.
Anything immediate needs, Dr. Baldwin?
I think we're going to make it through this school year.
Should we get our meeting down for tomorrow at 2 o'clock?
We do. Just tell me where.
Okay.
You tell me.
Right here at 2 o'clock.
We can do that.
And that's regarding SBA, trying to get that moved out, get something done on that.
Dr. Baldwin, overall enrollment up countywide, or is it stagnant?
We've gained about 1% a year for the last few years, so which is more than counties surround us. We picked up more. We've grown faster than most counties in West North Carolina, and it looks like that trend's going to hold true for this year.
But there's one thing on that, and you and I have talked about it. We may not have a population increase, but due to the law, you've got a decrease in your classroom, which is called a space problem.
That's exactly right, and I don't want to come across as we've had an enrollment increase, and that's the reason that we need to add these classrooms. This is because of that reduced class size legislation. It's creating an issue where we need additional classrooms so that we can have a smaller student-teacher ratio that's mandated by law. You know, and I'll say this: that could be adjusted through legislation. I'm bringing that up now so that, you know, it's going to be a huge impact on us in terms of facilities.
It's state legislature?
Yes.
Oh, there's Carl.
Yeah.
Carl, take care of it.
Give
Don't
him a
worry.
note, give him a note.
I got that wrote down.
It's crazy.
And you know, there are ways that I think that the legislature's idea was to reduce that class size so that instruction would be improved. But they also at the same time reduced the number of teacher assistants we had in the classroom. They could do both. They could address instructional issues with a teacher and a teacher assistant, and not add to the facility needs of the school systems and the counties. if they take that into consideration and quickly before 21-22.
Second and third grade teachers do not have a teacher assistant in their classrooms. And what they're having to do to get the classroom up to any kind of academic mode every day, it hurts. I mean, it hurts to hear what they have to do. Go through in the morning time trying to put things together so you can have an academic day.
But if they created some flexibility in that class size legislation right now by allowing a teacher assistant to come in there, say you've got a 17-to-1 ratio for student teacher, but if you had a teacher assistant in there, you could raise that a little bit. That would reduce the need for class size, and it really would not negatively impact instruction if they would consider things like that before 21-22.
Thank you, Dr. Ball.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ball.
Thank you.
I'll be back today.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Manager,
Sir,
preliminary budget outlook.
get 5 minutes for that.
I know, I gotta talk forward.
Both in time and quantity of content.
I can do it probably in quantity, not quality. Let's get started here. Mr. Chairman, this thing is kind of like the triple option. When it works, there ain't nothing better, but when it don't work, you're not going to win with it. So, moving into that, I'm like Dr. Baldwin. This is the 7th budget I've been through, and I can say, like he, that all of them are a little bit different. And this is an interesting time of year when we're talking about budget because we've just wrapped up the audit. We've heard some, reference back to the audit today. We're looking at how we're doing this year as well, and at the same time, we're trying to look out there to 2021 and tell us what's on the horizon. So let's real quickly break that down piece by piece. In 2019, we go back to the year we just ended, so the year that was just audited, FY19, we look at some budget highlights. We had the space needs analysis. We originally budgeted $300,000 for that. We ended up paying $167,000. That fruition has came here today. We saw them present, saw the final product they've given us, and now it is up to us to use and prioritize from that as we see necessary. We increased education funding in fiscal year 19. If you'll recall, we put $250,000 increase in annual capital outlay towards safety-related improvements. We put $500,000 into their operating expenses, and we put $300,000 from a technology capital fund into their annual technology appropriation, totaling $1,050,000. LED light replacement project, that was in the 2019 budget, and as you can see, all the lights in this courthouse and throughout all of our county facilities have been replaced with LED lights. This was done by our maintenance staff. Again, great job there by those folks in installing these. We originally budgeted $185,000 for this project. By the time that we received all the rebates from Duke Energy, we were able to get those lights for $75,000. So aside from overhead associated with personnel, that was about $110,000 savings on that LED light replacement project. We completed the revaluation. Abby was just up here with the tax office discussing that with you. That revaluation is a tremendous task. It's 44,000 pieces of property, $8 billion of assessed value, and that was completed in 2019. 2020 that we're in now is the first year that these values have taken effect, and Lori has went over that with you today. South Macon School renovation project. We completed the cafeteria renovations, 6 classroom addition for $3 million out of South Macon School. That is in order, in service, and working well, I understand. And fiscal year 2019, like every other year, we always have challenges. And for the past few years, the challenge has been with health insurance. If you'll recall, fiscal year 2019, we received a 24.8% increase to health insurance operating costs from our incumbent provider, which was by 10% lower than anybody else. So the next closest one was 35%. And that equated to about a $740,000 increase, which the county picked up $500,000 of that. So there were challenges there. That was when, as Lori mentioned today, we saw kind of a decrease in the out-of-county housing population, but 2019 it was busting at the seams. We were running wild. We had to increase both of the out-of-county line items and the part-time and overtime line items in the fiscal year 19 budget to accommodate this. So when you look at the fiscal year budget, and we'll go directly to the audit that we presented. I apologize, it's small up there. The first thing you want to look at is what did the fund balance do? What happened in unassigned fund balance? Well, in fiscal year 19, we finished the year $634,128 to the good. That puts, and Commissioner Bill asked earlier, that puts our fund balance right at $23.9 million to end fiscal year 19. And again, that's audited fund balance level. So how is that? When you take into account the fact that we had a $51 million budget, and if you say a perfectly balanced budget, when you originally start, we project it to be balanced perfectly. It ends, we're $634,000 off to the good. So that's about a miss of 1.2%. So if we say it's 100 if you're balanced at the first of the year and balanced at the end of the year, I'd say that $634,000 change in unassigned fund balance scores a 98.8. So boy, that was a good grade. It was an A+ on that budget. But that just goes to show you, and each of the county employees and the department heads and those with outside agencies that are in this room, these are the spokes that are in this wheel. This is what, we listen to Davenport, we listen to all these folks come in here and tell us how good our financial ratings are, how much debt we can take on, and how we've become in such good financial position. That's a direct reflection on these county employees, these county department heads that do not receive enough recognition, and I'll be the first to say that we could not do any of this without them. So why did we have a fund balance gain? What contributed to the fund balance gain? The auditors touched on that a little when they were here. The first thing, and again going back directly to the audit, is we underspent the budget in the general fund by $1.7 million. And again, that is going from original budget where we started and said this is what we think it's going to be to what actually happened. We had a $1.7 million underspend. I apologize, this chart's kind of busy. The total is on the far right-hand column. So that total over there references your $1.7 million underspend. Now, general government up here, the very far left, general government, of that $1.7 million underspend, and you can see your axis here on your graph, that's a 0 at the very top there. So of that $1.7 underspend, $1.1 million was in the general government. So what happened there? Why did we underspend the budget $1.1 million? Well, first of all, we have a $400,000 appropriation for broadband funding that was in the governing board's budget. That remained unspent as we continue to discuss that. So there's that $400,000 that is in the budget. In information technology, you had about $165,000 underspend. $62,000 of that comes from a vacant position that was vacant for that year. That position has now been filled. Another $62,000 of that comes from service contracts. We consolidated our number of servers from 9 to 7, and in doing that, we reduced the service contracts that we were paying for those servers were reduced. So during the fiscal year when we did that, we had originally budgeted those service contracts to pay that whole year. You had $150,000 underspend, in building and grounds. $110,000 of that is directly related to the LED light project that I mentioned. Aside from the underspend in building and grounds, you had $144,000 underspend in transfers. That has to do with no department. And the large majority of that is, again, the difference between that space needs analysis was budgeted at $300,000 in the transfers. We paid $167,000 for it. You had other things. The phones, the telephone expense from fiscal year, and that was when we had transitioned to the phone system. We were looking to nail down that savings number. And in that first year of transition, we left that telephone line expense budgeted as if we had not changed. When we actually got all the fodder was on the ground and the hay was in the barn, as they say, we had saved $90,000. So we had underspent $90,000 in your telephone expense. This LED light project, as some buildings were completed, we had an underspend of about $85,000 in electricity. So things like this are why this underspend is here. They can, and it can change. It could change like that. You know, this again was, various things. But moving forward and into fiscal year 20, these underspends will no longer be there because we capitalized on that savings. We capitalized on those service contracts being consolidated. So that savings that will not necessarily be there in 2020, but did contribute to that fund balance growth in fiscal year 19. So also, our 2019 revenues, the other piece of that puzzle, of that $634,000 increase in unassigned fund balance, the other piece of that puzzle is our revenues exceeded our expenditures. By the way, then let me run back before we get too far gone. On expenditures, that $1.1 million in general government, I hit on some things. $600,000 of that overspend was in human services. And as we all know, the fluctuation of that budget with federal and state grant money coming in and coming out, that accounted for the other $600,000 of that $1.7 million underspend. On the revenue side, actual revenues exceeded the ones we budgeted originally by $1.5 million. And you can see here in the audit, of course, and it's not that clear, but we originally budgeted 49.5, and revenues came in there at 51.07. Again, excess of 1.5 million. So one thing I want to point out here is where that revenue growth's coming from. Okay, we mentioned earlier when Mitch was up here, ad valorem tax is our bread and butter. That's how we get 58% of the money that we get. Sales tax accounts for another 15%. So this revenue growth of $1.5 million in fiscal year 19, I want to pay particular attention about where that revenue growth is occurring. One category is investment earnings. Now that increased by $328,000 in fiscal year 19 to about $727,000 in investment earnings. That's what that increase in revenue we budgeted was. To give you some idea of, again, very dependent on the market, very dependent on what happens with the rates. That's a direct reflection of that. From fiscal year 14 through fiscal year 18, it is equal to what we budgeted in fiscal year 19 in 1 year on investment earnings. So in other words, from fiscal year 14 to fiscal year 19, or fiscal year 18, we hadn't had $727,000 in investment earnings during those 5 years. So that just goes to show you that $328,000 increase in investment earnings, that's not really an increase in revenue that you can hang your hat on. That is something that fluctuates. And we have to keep in mind, that's the kind of revenue growth we're talking about. Again, we talked about on the underspend in expenditures, $600,000 of it was attributable to health and human services. Here you have a revenue increase of $774,000 that is attributed to restricted intergovernmental revenue, which ties directly back to Health and Human Services. So that's exactly what it says. It's restricted intergovernmental revenue. Again, the consistency of that revenue source, it fluctuates depending on state and federal grants. Very big piece of that $774,000 increase is a huge piece of that $1.5 million increase in revenue. Last but certainly not least, sales tax. We always take a very conservative approach on budgeting sales tax. It was $306,000 above what we had above our original budget amount. But as we spoke today, there's a plug in there in our capital improvement plan, and the excess sales tax revenue plays a key role in building that capital reserve fund balance, which ties back to all these capital projects we're talking about. If we don't, it's just like the $600,000 in cars, in vehicles that we budget each year. If we exceed that, then that capital reserve gets thrown off, and all these numbers that we discussed with Mitch today, there's something totally different now. So that's how that all ties together. And to express the volatility of sales tax, from the fiscal year 2007 leading up to 2008, that year there was about a right around $400,000 increase. Then from 2008 to 2009, sales tax decreased by 1.3 million. So there again, sales tax, you assume that revenue growth, and I mean, it's economics. You assume that it's baked in as you continue, but it still does not take away from the fact that something can happen, something can change, and that sales tax growth no longer becomes that consistent source of revenue increase that we've been seeing for the past 5-6 years in this budget. So as you can see, and by talking about the expenditures, the underspend, think that was just a combination of circumstances combined with the revenue growth. And I hope I show you to say that just shows you how good that $634,000 on that $51 million is, because there's so much that can change in there during that time. But again, give Lori a 98.8. That's a pretty good grade. Going into fiscal year 2020, first thing is, let's talk about some of the public safety enhancements that we've had in this fiscal year. We budgeted about $217,000, and in about 2 months, we will have 26 of our road deputies that are fully equipped with body cameras and in-car cameras. Now, these are the men and women that are out there, boots on the ground, front lines, and this is all the way in those deputies ranging from your lieutenants to your first-year officers will be fully equipped with in-car and body cameras. We were able to continue purchasing those handheld subscriber units, finished about a $1.2 million upgrade to the Viper telecommunications system, and I was actually talking with the sheriff about this the other night, and he can talk on his radio in Waynesville now. So that just goes to show you the power and the coming into the 21st century with this new technology that has went into this upgrade of the telecommunications system. We again increased funding for education. There was $415,000 there in 2020 that we approved for STEM education, for teachers' assistants, for the funding to supplement those increases, as Dr. Baldwin mentioned. That was an additional $415,000. Let's go back to 2019. On top of that, $1,050,000 that was appropriated from fund balance in fiscal year 19. We enhanced Health and Human Services. We added 2 social workers in DSS. Again, we talked about unfunded mandates, things passed down from the state. And during budget discussions in 2020, it was brought to our attention that the NC Fast system continues to place a burden, an additional burden on staff, making them less available in the field and spending more time babying this system through, if you will. So we added additional personnel to assist them with that. We made improvements to our dental clinic with purchase of new equipment. We added a full-time receptionist at the senior services building that, as we all know, continues to grow. So in doing that, we arrived at the 2020 budget of $53.2 million. And when you look at, real quickly, at the expenditures, we knew going into this budget that there was going to be unavoidable increases due to operations. We knew that we were going to get a health insurance increase. We knew that we were going to see a retirement increase. We knew we were going to try to provide employees with a cost of living increase. And we knew we had additional positions coming on. And that's something we don't have every year. We had actually 11 new positions in the 1920 budget. We had 6 in courthouse security. We added a EMS, one EMS. We added 2 in telecommunicators in the 911 office, 2 foster care workers in DSS. We added the full-time receptionist in senior services, and I believe that's it. If it isn't, I'll run back through them again. But we knew that these was going to be coming on, and going to be additional obligations that we picked up in fiscal year 20. So what did we try to do in advance of that? When we looked at the operating budget, we tried to take advantage of those efficiencies that we talked about in 2019. Number one, we reduced our electricity. We reduced our telephone expenses. We capitalized on that savings that we saw that made up that $1.4 million, $1.7 million underspend in fiscal year 19. We capitalized on as much of that as possible, and that's why that, as I say, we started 2020 on a clean slate. We didn't say, well, we've got $600,000 that we're going to continue putting in the bank, because as I've explained in that previous slide, that just is not the case. We absorbed all those efficiencies and started with a clean slate in 2020. We reduced operating costs outside of non-salary and benefit related operating costs throughout the operating budget by 2%. In other words, things like that, service contracts that remained unspent, that is no longer there anymore. And things of that nature. If there was, we looked, evaluated based on trends, and we went through without prejudice and looked at every, not so much as the department as much as the line item. In other words, we didn't pull department by department, we pulled line items for contracted services and looked at contracted services as a whole, where it appeared to be, we appeared to be trending the opposite way that the budget was going. We brought that back down. So on that 2%, you're talking about $7.3 million that we have in non-salary and benefit related operating costs across the general government function. Lastly, we knew that the $1,050,000 in recurring costs for education, we knew it didn't have a revenue source in 2020. We knew that it was from one-time revenue sources that it was appropriated in 19, so we had to match that with recurring revenue. And again, you can't tie it to your investments, you can't tie it to your sales tax on money that you have to depend on and has to be there. You have to tie it to your ad valorem tax increase, and that's what we did there. So knowing all these things were coming with the expenditures, how did revenue growth, how did we offset that with revenue growth? 2020 was a revaluation year. The revaluation number came in at 35.6 cents per $100 of assessed value, and the ad valorem tax rate that we finished with was 37.4 cents per $100 of assessed value. Now, at that generates $1.5 million worth of revenue. So all these other things, that $1.6 million that I listed off in the COLA, in the health insurance, in the 1.2% retirement increase, in the positions, we were able to absorb that in that revenue neutral tax rate of 35.6 cents per $100 of assessed value. We did that. We had $1.1 million of revenue elsewhere in the operating budget, and that $1.5 million, as Lori said, you know, that just shows, when Lori goes and shows these mid-year numbers, that we're tracking $1.5 million above where we were tracking last year. That goes to show you just how close that was in adjusting that tax rate. And again, you gentlemen need to be commended for that, because that is, you know, we're right on track, right on target. We absorbed as much as we could at that revenue neutral tax rate, but it was definitely a necessity that we increase it on up there to 37.4 cents per $100 of assessed value as we were moving into 2020. So lastly, and this is the last slide, moving into 2021, we know we're going to have a 4% health insurance cost increase right off the bat. We know that. We've received our numbers. But in 2020, unlike 2019, 2020 we had 11%. So we switched insurance companies after the 24% back in 2019. So since we've went with the new North Carolina health insurance pool, we have really capitalized on some savings. Well, not savings, we're still having to spend more money, but I mean, when you're looking at a 4% versus a 24% increase, and I think industry trend right now is 7% for healthcare, that's good. That's a win. We know the retirement system is going to increase by 1.2% again next year. We know that in looking at our employee pay scale, there are some departments, there are some areas of this pay scale where that our grades need to be adjusted. Our grades need to be adjusted for recruiting and retention purposes to bring them up to certain levels. If you'll remember, when the last time we've had any adjustment to the pay grades was in fiscal year 14, when Springstead came in. So in other words, we did a county salary study in 2016. We did not relitigate anything Springstead did. We were very clear about that in that pay study, but I would request that we get authorized to take a look at that. I have been looking at it, identified some areas, and would like to try, if at all possible, to implement some changes there in the 21 budget year. Ad valorem tax growth, there's going to be none. It's going to be minimal. Sales tax growth, again, it's looking good, but you know, there will be minimal. There will be tax growth from what we had, but it'll be because of the increase. So, for our purposes, budget purposes, it's flat. We know we've got the tax software. We've sat up here and listened to the educational needs that will be forthcoming, and we know that the capital improvement plan, as we've talked about here today, we've got big expenditures on the table. Again, that capital improvement plan directly ties back to the operating budget, because any overage that we have in sales tax is plugged. We've plugged $600,000 for the vehicles, so that's how much vehicles we're going to get, $600,000. We know we got $1,150,000 in annual pay-go. No, we have $700,000 in county pay-go. So we know we've got $1.3 million between vehicles and any capital pay-go needs that we have. We got to fit it in that, because that's what makes those numbers on that CIP work. So keeping all that in mind, I'm finished. This is your time to set some goals, objectives, what you'd like to see accomplished. I think it's clear everybody that's got up here today has talked about just the financial position that we're in. It's enviable. I mean, you go to some of these counties across North Carolina, and I mean, we're in the catbird seat, as the old saying goes. So that's a direct reflection of you gentlemen. I appreciate your time up here. It's an honor to come to work for you.
You got a big old notebook?
I got a big old...
3 pens?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I'm ready. Thank you.
Thank you, Derek. Good job. Appreciate you setting all this up for us.
Yes, sir.
Doing a fantastic job for the county. It does not go unnoticed. All right, does anybody want to kick off on fiscal year 21 goals and expectations? Just we'll wait on our manager to get back so he can listen up. I'm happy to start unless somebody else wants to.
It's your honor. Go.
All right. Derek, a lot of this doesn't have to do with, well, I guess it does all have to do with funds when it boils down to it, but just taking some notes on today's meetings, I think it would be good, for the reasons mentioned today, to consider several policies for this board moving forward. One would be a policy establishing a maximum debt to assess value, and another one, a maximum level of debt service to expenditures. So that was just per what Mitch provided us.
And I assume that the debt ratio as well to pay out.
Correct.
That was another one, you got mentioned three.
Correct. I didn't pick up on that one. I was probably taking notes, so I missed that one. But yeah, so those three. Again, I don't think that it necessarily affects your budget now, but down the road, with implementing those policies, it might. I would like for us, for this board, to consider a third one, and this doesn't come from Mitch. This comes from Jimmy Tate's School of Thought. It looks like our fund balance is over 50% now. I'd like for this board to consider some type of a policy also that maybe sets a maximum for what that fund balance should be. And if we do a good job and Lori continues to get a A+ on her grade point average, and we're going over that, we do something with those funds that way we know we have a goal of no more than 50%, and then maybe we set a minimum. I think the state sets a minimum for us.
It's 8.
Well, this
8%.
board set a minimum many years ago.
25%.
25%.
Yeah, right now we do 25% of unassigned.
So I'm just going to throw this out there. I think we might want to consider, if we're going to go through these other ones,
We
of
can work
maybe
with that.
maybe set them up. So for example, this year it was right at 24 million. If you take half of 51 at 20.5, then that would give us 3.5. And I would suggest that we set a policy that if anything goes over 50%, that we use those funds to pay down debts that the county owes, which just helps our budgeting in the long run, is to provide you more money, or we provide it to schools for capital outlay. But I think that kind of stops what I've watched, is that how I've watched that fund balance grow in my time as a commissioner. It might set it up so when we are doing good, we're actually helping out more. Now, you mentioned also in your presentation about our investment earnings, which is great. I mean, that's it's super. It's what we all want to do. But you look at what we paid off in interest based upon our debts, it was a whole heap more than that. So is that money good earning this interest, or is it better off? I understand some of those monies can't be spent. I understand there's a whole lot more to it than that. But if there's an opportunity of that $3 million or $2 million, whatever, $1,500,000 sitting in a bank account versus paying our debt down, it might be better off suited. So I just wanted to consider that. I think it was also mentioned today about the quarter-cent sales tax increase. I think we probably need to be discussing that real soon. We want to put that out to referendum, how we might be able to handle some of these expenditures moving forward in regards to our schools. The last thing, this is very minimal. I don't have a whole lot for this year. I know I see Chris here, but we're getting ready to be installing a water line and some infrastructure, I believe, on, is it Panel Lane? I just want to consider, while we've got that ditch open and digging it, if we might put any other utilities in that ditch if it's feasible. So no reason to do it again if we're going to have to. So have y'all discussed that, Chris? I'm sure y'all have.
We have introduced each other to the concept. I think we're going to try to schedule a little more discussion tomorrow.
If it's cost prohibitive, but to me, if it's just putting more pipe in there, and when you run a sewer line or something else at the same time, then why not do it and help our residents that much more? So
I don't know. I don't think it would be cost prohibitive to the project. I don't know the savings of doing it while it's open versus, but there are some side issues that will bear more heavily than the cost or the cost savings.
sure. Well, I just want us to investigate it, but
Sure.
Has that been scheduled, Chris?
No.
The ditch has not been scheduled.
we can. If it, y'all catch my point. So if we can do it, I think that would be a good thing to do in that area. So. Derek, I also feel like, again, it's a personal feeling, because of the changes that we've done the last couple of years, I think we ought to consider trying to hold our budget as flat as possible. I know there's going to be obviously some circumstances, as you mentioned here on this last slide, they're going to be coming up, but hopefully we can. And that's it from my perspective. Anyone else?
I've got a whole list.
Here comes pen number 2.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Commissioner Bill.
This is things that people have been brought to my attention, other people on this board, I'm sure that way we won't be repetitive. You talked about looking at the pay grades, Derek. There's a department now that's, they're under the direction of the board. And apparently, with the information that I've received, they're underpaid. We would ask that if you could look at, I know you don't want to do raises or change their salary in the mid-year. So I'll let you carry that water to them. But their chairman and vice chairman, this is Board of Elections, came to me and others on the board I know about personnel, about the director and the assistant director. So I would ask that you look at that, and if any other, while we're on that topic, if it came to any of y'all, if you want to speak to that too. But I think they need to know that, you know, we definitely want to look at that, and some other departments too. You'll have to do the same thing when that time comes. Does anybody else want to mention anything about the Board of Elections? I know, Gary, they came to you too.
I think one thing they looked what the surrounding counties, how they were paying the people at the same level, and they felt we should research that and try to make a move towards.
They will set those salaries, they'll set those salaries and benefits, but of course they'll come to the county for the money to pay them. So I think all of that becomes part of the budget request process.
It's one thing's mandated from the state, but we have to pay for it.
Correct.
And,
But they set it.
Do they look at years of position too? They did look at years of position.
And another thing, before we leave the Board of Elections, you'll probably see coming down as an unfunded mandate from the state is about our voting machine. That has been discussed. If Warren was here, he could tell you about how old ours is. I don't know. And the accuracy of them, and that's a big topic right now.
They've got that in their CI.
Yeah, it's a big topic. So that, and then moving on, one subject that has been brought to the attention of this board that we've talked about forever and a day while we're talking about building things is at the rec park covering our pool. I think that needs to be added to the list of wishes. These parents came to me that have kids that, if you're not familiar with the swimming program, it's very, they have one of the best swimming programs around. And if you ever go to a pool meet, some of those who might have kids that participate can tell you there's nowhere to watch the kids. Is that not true, Peter?
I referee all the meetings so I get to stand
Yeah.
close.
But, so I would ask that be one of those things to look at. And I know we had prices at one time, but a group of parents approached me with that. And this is probably something for the health department.
Ronnie, can I speak just briefly to that?
Yeah.
The way that I think it might be beneficial for you to look at it is if you look at the success and the participation of our summer program and the number of championships that we've won, and then look at our competition level, where we fall in high school. Not as good, not as much participation, not as good at times, and that is directly attributable to the schools that we are up against having year-round facilities and year-round swimming programs. which we can't, because we don't have access to a pool other than the rec park. So if you wanted something to hang your hats on about, would this make a difference, look at the 150 kids we have in the summer versus the 18 kids that were, or 20-some kids that were on the high school program, and look at our swimmers' times versus the swimmers in the summer at the younger ages, and then look at how those times are once you get into the high school, middle school, high school level. The non-year-round pool situation, it's an easy way to demonstrate what could happen here if they had access to year-round.
And we've had this discussion for many years. So I would ask that, Mr. Manager, if you could just,
Yes, sir.
while we're having a wish list. The next one is, was not brought to me by the director, Carmen, but this is the conversation we had a few years back about an ID card system at senior citizens. I don't know, that came to me through senior citizens, not through the director, about having some type of, I know a few years back there was a few problems, but I don't know how that would work, but that was just brought to my attention. I said I'd pass that along. I really don't know the need. You can talk to the director about that. And the next thing I have is, can the broadband money be passed through Boston West to Little Key?
I think what we saw there is that the state law requires the broadband funding to be distributed to a qualified internet provider.
Private.
A qualified private internet provider, and that, as far as I
That
know,
term's defined
that
by
and
statute.
Boston West would meet that, but they would have to comply with an RFP process.
We would have to put a request for proposal out, and any entity that is interested in responding would be allowed to respond. Much like,
So when can we do that?
We were going to talk about, we planned actually to talk about that on Tuesday.
yes,
It'll be ready Tuesday?
no,
Oh.
it'll be ready for y'all to make a decision and give us some direction, which direction you want to go.
Okay. All right, the next thing is, how much money in contingency?
77,000.
Spend it.
Met with the community care clinic. If the board remembers, they came before this board, asking for basically $75,000 or more to keep viable. Well, they did receive a grant, from the Highlands Trust. They got part of that funding from them. I met with Ms. Stiles, and what I'd like to do is have her come back and give you an update. They asked for 74. If you remember, we paid half of that. We gave them half to make sure that they stay viable. What they would like to do now, because of the load that they're seeing with people, the clients that are coming in, they're asking for that additional balance of that to put someone there during the day, a provider, another provider, $37,500. But that's another thing that we'd like to put on, not to be voted on today, but at either the March meeting or sometime, I know February meeting getting really booked up, so. But if Ms. Stiles wants to come in, if the board agrees to let her come in and give a report on her current staffing, what she's seeing, the number of folks. Of course, Ms. Stiles' office is at the health department. And she's also got a request there of maybe having an office that was previously occupied by somebody else, and we can have that discussion maybe through the health board. Who's the liaison there? Paul. Through the health board about maybe, and with Carmen about moving. One's a storage room, and Carmen can tell you more. But they'd like to have that discussion about having more accessibility at the health department.
Did they receive funds from community funding pool last week or last month? I
I
can't
do not know that.
No,
I don't think they did.
they didn't apply.
remember. Didn't apply.
They may be applying on the second round. I don't know that.
The Highlands cashiers did, but not.
Thank you.
So we'll, if the board agrees to have them come, also, the Macon County Fire Association, of which 2 members of this board are on that board, has made a request, is going to make a formal request to this board of asking for $20,000. We have raised some of the money. There's not enough money. We're going to have to, the roof situation there is not improved. It just leaks when it rains, but we're going to, the fire board is going to come before this board to ask for $20,000. And explanations, they can probably do that better than Carl and I, because since we're on that board. But of course, I, for one, think it's certainly a worthy cause, and it is, and we are going to approach the state about, at the agriculture department, about trying to get some help, but that's really far-fetched too. So that's all I've got today. Is that enough?
2 years worth.
Commissioner Shields?
You mentioned about
Commissioner Gillespie?
Just a couple things. One that I've talked about in every one of these meetings I've been privileged to be a part of is, and I think we do a fair job of it, but I don't think we need to lose sight of it, and that's to focus on efficiencies within government. I think we need to continue to look at technologies that will provide us efficiencies that we otherwise might not realize. So when we look at those, it doesn't. The net of it is not always a decrease in budget for this year. So we've got to be looking up and looking on down the road to see where those will be a benefit to us. I would like to see some additional funding. Of course, we haven't done a very good job spending it up to this point, but some additional funding for broadband. I think that after we have discussions at our next meeting, or whenever it is, and we fully understand what we can and cannot do in relation to funding broadband expansion, I think maybe it would be time for this board to move forward with starting to actually get something done in regards to broadband expansion, because there's plenty of room for growth there. So, and in doing that, I think it's, I touched on this before, we need to have a formula or a policy, however you want to look at it, in place so that we can ensure that citizens, no matter whether they're in Highlands or Nantahala or Franklin or Holly Springs, are being treated fairly in regards to that funding, because I think that's going to be a huge funding effort if we really get serious about it, and I think we're going to have to get any relief. So that's just a couple things that I thought of sitting here that I'd like to see us address.
Thank you. Mr. Hagan?
I've got 21 things.
You voted against the budget, Paul. I don't think why you'd have anything.
I need to spend all the money, so these are going to be...
But you voted against the budget to start with. Why would you even speak to it?
I don't approve tax raises, right? Tax increases.
I don't want to.
Oh, you want to? Okay. Put it down. I just made an introduction there. Putting this budget together is a complicated thing. I think the county manager, that's primarily his responsibility, and his budget team, all of you employees. And there's some things. Nantahala Library and Community Center, Carl, I appreciate his kind words on it a while ago. For those of you who've never been to the Nantahala Library Community Center, it's a dog. The carpet's wet, it's leaking. It was a tier 3 on the CIP, and I appreciate what I've heard here today about moving that around. And, I think it's time that we look at committing funds to get someone other than members of this board or members of management to do an assessment of that current location. There's a little stripe over there. Some want it in the current location, some don't. That's not our issue. What would we need to do, and how much would it cost to put out an RFP or whatever you call it, to hire an architect or engineer to do an assessment of the current location or a new site to get this thing rolling? After that, look at some plans, because we could sit here for the next 5 years, and I've been here a few years, and we've talked about it for 3 or 4 years, and we're still at the same place. So what does it take to get this program off the ground?
Ms. Waltz, can you add to that? Doesn't the library have an architectural firm that you go to, or?
We don't engage an architectural firm. We've worked with a couple of different firms on projects that we've done for renovations
The
in
Montana
Highlands.
Library doesn't have a group they go to and do what Paul was doing assessment?
We don't have anybody available or funds to do that.
Well, and I think, Gary, it's important, we're not talking about building a library. We're talking about building a multi-purpose facility over there that would house the library. It would house a place for the sheriff's department to do their stuff. It would house a place for the health department to be able to do some stuff. So I think that this, it's to me, in a place for the community to gather. So I'm not speaking for Paul, but my understanding, being over there talking to those folks, that's the kind of building that they want. I appreciate what Paul's saying. We've talked about it and had meetings and studied it, and all you got to do is just go over there on a day like today and see water pouring in, and we'll figure out we need to do something. But I would like to see us, as Paul mentioned, go ahead and let's get started down that road. But that building's not, my view on it, it's not a library. The library is a part of it. But all those other things that the community has asked for needs to be a part of that building.
Is there any property, is part of this going to be buying property?
The conversations that I've had over there and what I've looked at is the community, where the baseball field is, they feel like that is not the best use for that property.
Has anybody submitted
I've reached out to Duke multiple times and I've never got a response
Is this
back.
part of the property that's subject to the long-term lease with Duke?
And,
You're definitely gonna have to get their permission.
and I've reached out to Duke multiple times and have not received any feedback from Duke on that.
Does Mama still land on that field there?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Beverly can.
And y'all need to decide whether or not you want to go beyond the length of that lease, if that's where you're looking at doing this, or whether you're happy with the project that will become Duke's property at the end of that lease.
Well, going back in a few years, Karen and I looked all over Nantahala. We thought we had a spot at one time. The problem is, no matter where you go to, is the water and sewer. That is a real problem in Nantahala, especially if you do building like you're talking about. And we had a spot once upon a time, and that didn't happen. I totally agree. They've needed a library for a long time. I just think that the most common sense place for if there are some land there, it's sort of straight up, but there's some land there at the school. And is that the best place for it? I don't know. But the problem is finding a place, even if you go to the rec center, to put a building like this, that won't. We looked at that way back in the day, and first of all, Duke is not too gung-ho with that, because that pipeline comes right through the middle of it. And so we've been down that road, but if Paul thinks that somebody else can do a better job of trying to find a location that can handle the sewer,
Well, I think we just need someone front and center dedicated to starting this process. We just keep talking about it. We just keep talking about it. And who's going to pick up the ball? Is it an architect, an engineer, a dedicated employee?
I think the first thing would be if they want that, to see if Duke would give permission to be on that property, if that's where they want the location.
If you ask Ms. Wallace what she thinks about that location.
No, if you ask the people in the Nantahala community
That's
what
right.
they think about that location, which we have done and provided that information to this board, that is not a popular location. They do not want it at that location.
And I have
The
made,
majority of the 100 people that we surveyed in Nantahala, almost none of them would select that site for community, library, community.
Where do they want it though?
and
Well, they
I think,
like,
I've made multiple trips over there and met with those folks. I didn't send them a mailer. I went over and talked to them. And we rode out there and looked at it. And we went up to the school and we looked at that as well. And while it's not perfect, it is absolutely not perfect, we never found the perfect place in Nantahala.
No.
But what we did determine that is a whole lot better than what we have. Is it acceptable and would it be useful? Yes, is the question of that. So I think, you know, I agree with Ronnie, water and sewer is an issue. There's concerns of putting it next to the school. I think we can overcome those in talking to the school system folks. There's some things that can be put in place. But going back to where Paul's at, we're still sitting at the same spot that we were a long time ago when y'all talked about it.
I think the first thing you need to do is get a plat of that school. That plat has changed twice. Where that Nantahala school actually sits in the property that encompasses that campus. That's been a sort of a moving target.
The school board on
With-
that property?
That's right. I think they paid us off.
My question, is it feasible to employ, contract, whatever, an individual to do this legwork?
I think once you get to the point where we've got a location and we have that location surveyed, I think at that point we turn it over to an architect, say design us a building, put it on this piece of property, they handle it from there. And that wouldn't be a building that's going to cost. You could do a resolution exempting architectural services just like we've done, or just like we would do for that project at the middle school, that new locker room like we're going to be talking about on Tuesday. As long as it's under $50,000, which it will be, as long as the architect contract is under $50,000 for the work they're doing, you can exempt those services. And once we have a location and say, here, design us a building and put it here, here it is.
Okay, what about a feasibility study for the current location? I mean, we've got a double wide unit sitting there. Probably today there's water running under it behind it.
Here's one problem with the school location. That's not county property. And the school can only use that property for school purposes. So you're not going to be able to get the community center there in all likelihood unless you acquire that property from the school.
Have they paid us off on that, Lord?
I was trying to find it in this book. I'm
We
not
still
sure.
may own it.
There's a
You may
loan
own it, but you may own it only
only
to
for
the extent
Yeah,
that the
well,
loan's
the
for,
financing,
yeah.
yeah. Now,
Now,
that
when
having
we
been
talked to them
said,
before, when we talked, the school was using that library.
there's no question is the library there, I'm sure they
But the
would
school
like to have
uses
a new library. The problem is when you start getting other things that are a little less related to education.
But every schoolhouse is community building, more or less, every one of them.
Well, you better talk with the school board and you better talk with the school board's attorney about what can and can't be done there before you get too far down that road.
But I think we can't do nothing until we look at the plat and see.
Yeah, and
Okay,
just, like I say, once we got a location and everybody's good with the location, it's a matter of entering into a contract with an architect and we're done.
Okay, that's a topic that we urgently need to resolve this year.
Can you take the lead on that?
Yeah.
Do you want Derek and myself
in
to
your spare
take a
time.
look at the Duke property?
I want to see, I want to see the plat on the Nantahala school. See what version we see now.
And we just need to lead a point person on this project.
Yeah, I'll do it.
And Derek, you got your wagon loaded with the budget coming up, you know.
I'll be part of it. We can, I mean, it ain't nothing, it's gonna be finding the plat and getting the answer from Duke, which is gonna be.
Well, and let's look at the current property, as Ronnie said, you know, well, you better communicate with the school board and you better communicate with the school board's attorney about which of these features would be allowable on school-owned property.
And I'll get with you. We'll double work together.
Okay?
Is that a
Just-
report?
But our argument would still be every school is a community building, more or less.
All
They
right.
have every activity you can think of in a school building, so.
Number two, convenience center staffing issues. The current program that we have for these convenience centers that we all enjoy and utilize allows for staffing all centers with part-time employees only, which was, you know, this was instituted, what, 25 years ago?
For longer.
And we threw it together, just use part-time employees to keep the cost down, but it's remained that way for 25 years. These employees are the face of our county, and they are without any benefits, including retirement, enjoyed by employees of other departments. And I'm suggesting again that management, I throw everything to Derek, but we work with Solid Waste Director to develop a more equitable staffing solution with proposed funding. Last year, and I am appreciative that we worked it out, or Chris did, that when we started looking at this, had a high turnover rate. These folks were working less than 19 hours a week. Some of them drive from Franklin to Highlands to staff a convenience center for 4 hours a day and back to Franklin. You can't keep a car up for $7.50 an hour. That's what we're paying that low end. $7.50 an hour. You up that, the minimum to $8.50, I think now. $1 an hour is a big thing for them for that. It's still not equitable. These folks, I know some folks, have a guy going to my church, we never talked about this. He retired from it, retired from a convenience center after about 15 years at $8 an hour. Didn't even get a thank you card or a salute. They're non-employees in essence. But we've got to do better than that, folks. We have got, this is a 25-year-old program. The top pay guy's been there 20-something years. He's at $10.50.
That's probably a little more than that.
I forgot my sheet. We can do better than that. So I'm just suggesting that management, not today, not next week, but during this budget process, because there's going to be associated funding issues with it, we need to be a little bit more equitable and consider those folks. It's a vital service that they provide, and we need to recognize that and appropriately reward them. Broadband communications. I appreciate Carl and all you guys, and we've kicked this topic around numerous times. We've had presenters, presentations made to us. But as I read it, the federal government's just, the FCC's just approved a $20 billion grant for rural broadband access, and we have a broadband committee. But I think we need to look at a position. We need to have a lead person on this program. We're not competent to award. We've had Little T and other people come make presentations. We need a lead person heading this up, working with our broadband committee. They need to be pursuing these grants, whether it's a grant writer, a broadband expert, whatever. We've got to have a lead person, or we're going to be in the same thing with the Nantahala Library in 4 years. We're still going to be here wallering it around. You know, no one's responsible for it. No one's taking the lead. So I'm suggesting that we look at employing or contracting with an individual, a competent individual, or and right now we got a $400,000 line item in the existing budget, in the commissioner's budget. There's $400,000 just sitting there that's dedicated for broadband, and I guess that'll carry over till next year. And I'm not saying we need to run out and spend that money, but we've got funds to do something with this broadband approach. So my recommendation is seriously looking at hiring a lead person to go after those monies. And the state, I think, is trying to get a $100 million grant together to release for the same purpose. And if we're sitting here, they're not going to bring it to us. We need someone going after these grants. And your broadband committee may be doing that.
it's very discouraging. We're at tier 2 now. Tier 1 in this great GREAT things now. When I attended the last meeting, and really they encourage you to be regional responsive, not locally. But you need to, and there's 7 counties, we need to have programs that look at it from a regional perspective. Sarah Thompson, to me, is one of the key persons with Southwestern Workforce Development, the Southwestern Commission. But the great, and I think it's going to change, it may have already changed, the great GREAT fund.
That's the state
that
money.
they allotted was only for tier 1.
July 1, it'll go to tier 2.
Don't you gotta be a provider to get that money? Don't the provider have to?
It'll be a provider. You're
Maybe
exactly right.
Marsh Broadband got some of that to upgrade. Carl, we're right on that. They upgrade for
Frontier.
HD.
But it won't be monies available to the county, but providers who are in those tier 1 and tier 2 counties.
And but the tier 1 wasn't even. And I've been working with a gentleman over at Chogi. I'm going to ask him to come to our meeting next month when we talk about this. You should try to get broadband services down in Chogi. He's very frustrated with it. I don't know, Carl, if he's talking to you, if you know who I'm talking about, Mr. Hauser, Dwight Hauser. But I'm going to ask him to come just to hear what's being said. But he could, and I'm telling you, in the last 4 months, he's met with everybody we met in here, and the gentleman that came from the state, Keith Conover. I went over and met with him and drove all over there. But it's really when you try to get the providers to become interested in you, they just scoot away from you because it's a money thing. But I want to invite Dwight to come to let him know that this is a conversation piece, and he can make an ad. He's done a lot of work trying to get broadband service down in Chogi. And the sad part about it is, you got a wire or line running right beside the road down through there that you can't get access because there's not enough people living there or year-round there, those type of things. And I'll ask Dwight to share some things with you, and he can.
Yeah, I know that.
Do you?
Okay, has he talked to you? Okay.
How about that? All right, number 4, it's gonna be the hard one. Community funding pool. And I know Karen's ahead of that. You know, I acknowledge the value, charitable value of all of these nonprofits in the county, but I've never been in favor of taking taxpayer dollars and selectively funding nonprofits. And I'm going to make a suggestion that we open this up for discussion, and my vote would be to eliminate that $75,000 line item in the budget, because it's fairly obvious we're going to be crunched for funds this year. And in closing, I got one request from my fellow board members. You know, if you've got something you want Derek or the team to consider, submit it early, because it seems that we've adopted a pattern of every year after we have our public hearing on the proposed budget, immediately we go into changing or adding or approving things after the budget has been, the public hearing has been closed. And this process is certainly not complimentary to the manager and his team or to us as a board. So that's just something that's kind of irritated me in the last 2 or 3 public sessions we've had. But I do thank you for your efforts, Derek, and your leadership on this, and let's hope for a good year.
I hate I missed that. Could you repeat that, Paul?
I'll send you an email.
Yeah.
All right, anything further, Commissioner Shields? Commissioner Bill?
Do you have anything, Mr. Sheriff?
Could I speak just for a minute?
Sure.
Yeah.
First of all, I have the utmost respect for all of you, and I appreciate the service that each of you provide. And I'm kind of going out on a limb, and I hope I don't insult anybody by doing this. I don't mean to do that. But as a county employee, and I've been here a little while, I've been here about 28 years, part-time and full-time. And I have a request that I would like to make of you all. Everything that you've talked about today, buildings and whatsoever, it's because of your county employees providing those services. And while I do not speak for all my department heads in this county, if they said so, I think they would encourage me or wish they could say the same thing on some of the things I'm saying. As a department head, I can only speak for my department. But I will also say, on behalf of all the department heads, I'm proud of this county. I'm proud to have been a member of it. I could have gone elsewhere to make more money. I've been offered job opportunities elsewhere, just like many of our other department heads have. We're committed to this community. We're committed to you all. And the reason our finance director and county manager and you all look good, besides the fact that you're doing a good job, those people, but these people are doing a good job as well. And so, and they're people, the people that serve under them, okay? And so what I would like to see from you all as a board is, and I had to go in and out of here, we've got a lot going on today. But what I don't think I heard, and if I did, feel free to clarify it. I'd like to hear all of you encourage our county manager who is capable. In fact, one day I'll get to retire, I'm going to go into a business of going in and doing county pay plans and all that stuff, because that's the biggest bunch of hogwash I've ever seen. Because we pay these people a whole lot of money to make recommendations, and a lot of times, most of the times, it doesn't go there. And we're capable. We run the county business. Our county manager, and he can appoint people to help him, are very capable of doing that without getting an outside source, because we're never able to do what they recommend. And our county manager, I think all of us have enough faith in him that he can put a team together to come up with a proper pay plan, a proper pay scale for our employees. Because I'm telling you, I can speak for my department only, and I'm sure there's others. We can go elsewhere, and we don't want our people to do that. They deserve to know they have the support of our county. They're providing the services for you, and all of you expect the very best of all of them. And if they don't give their very best, you're just like me. You're going to try to get it to where they do their very best. You're going to want something corrected. And I'm telling you, these people deserve more. And I would ask as commissioners, I'm not saying to give us all raises today. It's not what I'm asking for. I'm just like to hear my county commissioners, directors, county managers, to seriously look at this and to come back with some serious recommendations that you all will seriously consider.
Sheriff, I think you might have missed it, but if you look right up there on that thing, yeah, he touched on it.
Okay.
And I think we've all had that discussion with him, even though we might not have said it publicly, but we appreciate your sentiments.
Well,
I don't think any of us would disagree with what you're saying whatsoever.
As a county employee, I would sure like to see it on every one of y'all's lists. Thank you.
Good, thank you.
Carmen, you have anything?
Sure.
Thanks for the opportunity. Being a interim health director, we might be. After I get done talking, I might be through too. But I couldn't. I guess my sentiment is that Sheriff Holland has summarized, I think, a very good point, and I would echo that many-fold. That the pay plan that I've heard referred to throughout the years that I've been here, and now going on about a year and a half, is such an essential part of what I think we will need, not only for now, but for the future, to maintain a qualified workforce, that I couldn't see a better investment right now, aside from the buildings. The buildings could be blown away tomorrow, but your staff will still be here. Whether we're working out of a shed or whether we're working out of a Taj Mahal, doesn't change, in my opinion, the quality of what our workers do and provide for this county. And we do it just for what Sheriff Holland said, is because we care. And I've never met a group of commissioners, county management, boards of health, who had as much commitment and willingness to work together as I have with you all. I have been around North Carolina since 1987 and worked in various counties. So I give you lots of credit because you have a heart that for this public service that I haven't seen consistently in other places. But I would echo the sheriff's sentiments. I was hoping to hear out of each one of your lists pay plan and to give that clear direction. I didn't hear it. It was kind of, yeah, I see it up on there, but the only person that really mentioned it was limited in. So all I can say is we're losing folks. It costs this county a lot of money and time and effort. And the other thing that I've heard is efficiencies. And as I've said to Derek once before about efficiencies, is when you come to us asking for efficiencies, my question back to you all is, what are you going to do to help us be more efficient? Where can you support us to be more efficient? And the biggest area that I think we can invest in right now, aside from employees, is information technology. To make sure that we have the information technology tools, support, and staff that we need. It's just like any other tool in our tool bag. Whether it's a stethoscope or a computer, we rely on that every day. And if it's down or not working optimally, it affects our efficiency. So, you know, those investments to me is, you want efficiencies, what can we use as either resources? We have a great finance department, HR, information technology. All these folks are a support to the health department and other departments that do the work. If they're not fully supported so that they can do their work, that has a ripple effect to the rest of us. So I would say those two things, the staff and information technology, are critical, and couldn't agree more about mental health. It's such a big component of what we're dealing with. As your health director for now, I would just say mental health will pay you big dividends because you're investing in it now. And the many years that our kids from K through 4 down in South Macon who are getting full-time behavioral health specialty for 3 years because of a grant that we put forward need to be looked at as something that you might want to replicate in other elementary schools and invest in your kids early on. You guys, don't mean to be trite, but you all have a tough job, but you all have big hearts and the mind and the capacity and the finances to do what's right. And I would encourage you to do it. Thanks.
What about from a veteran service office?
I would probably just echo what everybody else said. I mean, the same way, you know, I've had other counties ask me to come work for them, but there's no way I would ever leave this county simply because of the support that we get from our commissioners, from our veterans. I mean, our county's the envy of counties all across the state because we have a veterans clinic. We have the best veterans hospital, one of the best in the nation. The groups that we have, our Vietnam Veterans Association, largest chapter in the state. And Christy and I, all we have to do is pick up the phone and say, hey guys, what do you need? So, you know, I think that our employees, you know, the camaraderie that we have, the way we work together, the way, you know, anytime we have a veteran in need, we can work with any of these other agencies. I think the improvement plan is great, that we can maybe partner where we're located so that we can maybe make better use of our services. But again, I think that, you know, echoing what everybody else has said, the employees that you have here in this county are remarkable. Not just talking about department heads, the actual employees all the way down. I'm absolutely appalled about the convenience center workers. I mean, that's terrible. That breaks my heart because those people, I mean, that's where the rubber meets the road. I mean, we all go take our trash out, you know. So, but I think the county employees are, I mean, if you look at the longevity that we have, the dedication that we have, and most people in this room have probably been here 10 years or longer at least. And we love what we do and we love being here. So, and thank you guys for your support. But again, I think those, compared to other places across the state, those pay scales need to be definitely be looked at.
A good example of a veteran service office, of course, for you don't know, we were one of 5 counties in the nation that was chosen for veteran suicide prevention. when you have 12% of your county that's veterans, we're one of 5, and we're working very closely. I think we meet again Monday? 19th, sometime. And so we're very excited about the possibility of working with veterans more. That's all through No Wrong Door and our best in service office.
Yeah, and mental health is huge, what Gary was bringing up. And not just, I mean, you're talking education, you know, all across the board, and even with veterans, even though we have a clinic here, even though there's veterans that don't get mental health care, and I could scare you with the veterans that have walked in my office and said, if you don't help me right now, I'm done. So, you know, mental health is huge.
You got veterans coming from Hickory to see the MS Library.
Yeah, we have a lot of people don't realize because of the location of the clinic, our numbers, I mean, our tiny little office brings in a lot of money into this county because of the benefits that we have fight for veterans. But our numbers never really reflect accurately because we see people from North Georgia, South Carolina, and neighboring counties that don't have service officers. So we catch a lot of veterans from other counties.
Thank you for what you do.
And there's room for expansion in that program, isn't there?
There could be, yes, sir.
And what's the limiting, what limits us from expanding?
Well, I mean, it's definitely something we could look into, absolutely.
You gotta have funding for it, don't you?
Yeah.
In space.
In space.
In space, yeah. And we love where we are, but, you know, I know Warren could probably make use of that area.
Yeah, you and I had that discussion, and it got shot down, not the you.
So Karen, you're a department head too, so you think that from the library?
Well, I think you all know that I appreciate being called the department head, but we are an outside agency as Fontana Regional Library, but we do serve the citizens of Macon County. And as you talk about pay raises and the effect that our employees have on our citizens and what we can provide to them, we hope that you'll remember that the library employees don't fall under your specific pay plan. We haven't seen many increases in recent years and hope that you'll consider that for the future. Obviously, the Nantahala project is near and dear to our heart. We've been in that building for over 20 years and it is falling apart around us, and hope that we can work with you all to improve services to the people in Nantahala. So we, like everybody else that has mentioned, part of the success of services in Macon County is because people work together. We work with lots of different agencies, different departments throughout the county, whether it's senior services or veteran services or the health department. We work with everybody. And we try to provide support and services to those organizations to help the people of Macon County have a higher quality of life. So we appreciate the support that you've given us.
Still got Chris Stahl.
Thank you, Karen. You're literally gonna let me go last, no one.
Hey, Jackie.
How much?
Let you go.
Ditto. The main thing I would want to point out or bring back up today is I came to you guys a few months ago and talked about our operation. For anybody that doesn't know, I don't operate out of the same funds that you do, so you know, good luck with the melee. I get to avoid that. But we have eclipsed our operating budget with our current funding levels. Any special projects, any equipment replacement, anything we're doing is coming out of fund balance, which is not something I can keep doing forever. And then taking the hits of the state, we're finally seeing the ramifications of the destruction of the scrap tire program and the white goods program. You know, it's not enough money to get the big headlines, but for us, it's significant dollars. Just between white goods, scrap tires, and e-waste, we're Macon County, we're probably looking at a couple $100,000 of money that should be there for these programs. Like I said, I know that pales in comparison to what we get handed from the schools and mental health and a lot of the other issues that we've talked about. But when you're your own funding source and a dollar in revenue or a dollar on the availability fee or a dollar on the tipping fee is about $25,000 to $30,000 in total. A couple $100,000 starts to add up. And combine that with the couple $100,000 that the shortfall we're going to see for the foreseeable future years from the sale of recyclables. I hate to say it, I mean, I don't know how I would build a budget this year without looking for some sort of fee restructuring. So it will be, I've never given you a budget that I didn't feel like I could defend. Actually, my budget this past year is probably the first time, or it might be 2 years ago, once we started the fund balance for the new sale. That's the first year my budget was ever as much as it was the first year I was here. So we've kept it, I've tried to keep it low, and even that $1 million debt service payment, I think we ate $500,000 or $600,000 of that in our operating budget through other cuts. But I've cut all I can, and we're going to keep going, keep doing recycling, keep providing services. I'm probably going to be asking for an increase in one or other of my fees. But
how's the upgrades on the outline transfer station?
They are hopefully about to take off, and I'm hoping to have them both done. Well, obviously in this budget year, but I'm hoping to have them both done by sometime in April.
If it quits raining.
That will help, absolutely. I had to back up a little bit. I got kind of ahead of myself on some permitting requirements, but I think I've got that straightened out now. So we have all the equipment. We're ready. Like I said, I'm hoping within 30 days to put both those projects out for at least informal bid. They're not huge projects. Just need to do the groundwork, pull a couple of electrical wires, and put everything in place.
Still got Mr. Morgan. He's gonna tell us how good buildings are.
Was it you or behind me?
It's fantastic.
What are you seeing in building permits, Jack?
Yep, we're still in building permits.
I mean, what are you seeing then? I mean, up, down?
It's up a little bit. I forget what the percentage was. 21%. 21% up. Our higher end homes have increased over the past couple of years, over 400,000. We've got more of those from home. So, I don't know what the economy's going to do, but right now it's okay. There's serious need out in our county for tradespeople, people to do the work. I guess you're aware of that, Mr. Beal. But as far as county business, these guys have nailed most of it. I couldn't help what they've said, but the most valuable resource the county has is its employees. It really is. It is. And you couldn't put a dollar number on the knowledge base just in this room. You couldn't buy it. So I just urge you to try to take care of those people. On another note, for the county purposes, planning is a pretty important thing. We talked about how we plan for now, but not for the future. I would hope the county would try to plan for the future in all aspects. It would be education, health needs, personnel, buildings, whatever. Think 25 years down the road. We're working on a transportation plan now for 24. Where are we going to be in 24? But anyway, we're going to have some roads. And along with that, we have a serious need for people to help with that plan. We have advisory boards that don't pay anything, but it's hard to get people to to commit yourself to that? I mean, do you want to go down to Burlington next week for a meeting, take your own time? It's hard to get people to do that. That's what we meet next week. So if you can drum up some interest, we'd appreciate that. We have a couple of boards that even have people on right now. So think about that. Pete?
Thank you, Jackson.
Thank all of you. All right. Mr. Rowland, just a few more items to go and we'll be done. Distribution of the proposed budget calendar.
Yes. They are.
Looks good. What's next?
Thanks, Derek. I think we have a couple items of, do you want to speak about this, Derek, before we move on?
No, sir, just if you all are good with the dates, then we'll
It's good to me.
go.
Hopefully we'll stay on track there. I've got a resolution sitting here. I presume this will be under other business. Exempting, surveying.
Be able to hold that till
Till
Monday.
Tuesday.
I'm sorry, Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Okay. I just saw it had today's date on it, so.
It,
That was the
yeah,
intent.
it presumed that y'all were going to approve the architectural contract. It doesn't need to be approved until that contract is.
I have one item of business I'd like for us to discuss while we're together real quick. If anybody else has anything, we're happy to do this under other business. I know just from the rumor mill, we're probably going to have, next Tuesday's meeting, we're going to have a lot of people involved regarding the, what we started at our January meeting regarding the Second Amendment issue. I'll just speak my spiel on it first, and y'all can speak up. Since that meeting, I've probably received 10 different resolutions. I don't know what I'm considering, what I'm not considering. I've got one from Raven County, I've got one from Habersham County, I've got one from Cherry County. I've got 2 different ones that have Macon County written on it, but I don't know where they go. I've got one from 2 other counties in North Carolina. I've got some out of Virginia. I don't know kind of which way's up. And then I asked our county manager to provide me my oath of office that I gave as a Macon County Commissioner. And in this oath of office, I say twice, that I will support and maintain the Constitution and laws of the United States. So I'm at a little bit of it does say North Carolina too, but I think with the Second Amendment, they're predominantly focused on that. So I don't know what more I can do. I mean, I've already sworn on the Bible that I would uphold the laws and Constitution of the state and of the federal government, but if this is something that y'all feel is important that we need to continue a discussion on because we haven't already done enough, then let's task Chester or Derek or somebody with giving us something that we can all look at without 10 different somethings coming out of left field that, again, I don't know kind of which ones I'm supposed to and which ones I'm not. But y'all open up. I don't know. Like I said, we're going to have a lot of people here probably at our next meeting that we're going to have to speak to or something, and I'd like a little direction from kind of where y'all stand on it. So.
I agree with you, Mr. Chairman. That, you know, we've done and took our oath off. We'd uphold the Constitution. I cannot raise my hand for any kind of resolution that's going to be breaking the law. And this is, I mean, that's a Chester question, but you know, a lot of these, it's a symbolic. It's all symbolic. There's no real. It's political and symbolic is what it is. And it's all well and good, but I think we've done took that oath of office. That we have to uphold. So what, if anything, I'd ask that our county attorney research it, and if you've read his email, but I mean, I really, you know, if you want to take a resolution and put it in the archives, and if it's ever needed, I mean, if it's going to be a resolution, it needs to go to the legislature, not the county commissioner. We're an arm of the state. We have to do what the state says. Just look at the unfunded mandates. That's how you got to look at it. So that's how I feel about it, and it's. And that's not against, I probably got more guns than maybe Paul did. But, I mean, it's not about the gun issue. Everybody on this board is, you know, is hunters and have more guns, and I don't think that's the issue here. I just think it's turned very political, and I don't see no purpose that it would help the overall system of Macon County. I just don't see it.
Anybody else want to speak or?
Well, you know, we've set it up for them to come and present. I think it's,
Well, I don't think we've set up anything.
well,
I think they just said they were coming,
They get us
so.
a resolution, you know. I think
Who-
they were
who
invited
has?
to present a proposed resolution. And I think you have received it, those.
I've received all kinds of resolutions.
And so the question, you know, I think for each of y'all is.
There's
to look at
5 right
those
here.
And to decide whether any of those, you know, fits with what you're interested in doing, or if not, or if you want to make sure that if you choose to do one, that you do one that is not going to run afoul of the law as it presently exists, or your oaths of office, you can direct me to prepare one. There's nothing that requires you to do anything.
I think I've seen the Haywood and I haven't seen the Macon County. And I may have just did a quick read. But their instance, in my opinion, was that's the county commissioners, their body, was in support of the Second Amendment. That was basically it. They just reaffirmed what, and the Constitution, they just reaffirmed what we made a note to. Did I read that wrong, or anybody else read
No,
it?
Haywoods is basically, they just voted on it, I think.
Yeah.
It goes just slightly further than that,
Okay.
but generally that's.
And to me, that didn't hurt my feelings when I was reading what they had put down. I could live with that. So if there's something that we need to do, and if it has to come in some kind of situation as a group or commission, we do support the Second Amendment.
I think that's just a choice this board has to make. If it wants to make the choice of providing assurance to individuals who petitioned you to specifically support the Second Amendment, if you want to provide
If you do that, how many constitutional amendments are there?
27.
27, 28, something like that? What about the first and second and the third and fourth,
No
fifth?
get any argument with me.
I mean,
But I think the courts are the ones that has to determine if there's any alteration or anything. We just support what the Constitution has at this time.
I think what you support, what you have agreed to do when you took your oath of office is to support.
we put our hand on the Bible and said that,
You
didn't we?
supported the United States Constitution and the North Carolina Constitution, both of which has something to say about gun rights. But you also, whether you know it or not, you also agreed to support the way we interpret the Constitution. And when there's a difference in how we interpret the Constitution, courts make that decision. Not me, not you, not the county manager, not the sheriff, but courts make those decisions. If every one of us in these 100 counties decided it was our job to interpret the Constitution, we would have chaos because there would likely be 1,000 or 10,000 different opinions.
Why can't you put that in just what you said? You have to have direction.
I think-
Many people I've talked to, I feel like there's a need for Gary Shields to do something. And I think there's an expectancy out there. But I think this, my feeling is this board needs to make the resolution, not to receive it from somebody else. Does that make sense?
After all, it is your voice.
Right.
not somebody else's voice. It
And
should be your resolution.
And the resolution would be what you just put in there, and we support the Second Amendment.
And I should have prefaced what I said is I very much support the Second Amendment and the North Carolina constitutional provision, own guns, and those rights to own and possess guns are very important.
I think it may be a political, I heard Ronnie or somebody like they're saying, it's gun sanctuary is the terms they're wanting to employ. And I think it's a political statement that, hey, you know, after it's West Virginia or Virginia triggered a lot of this stuff.
And nothing's passed in Virginia.
Well, actually, a good bit of it has passed.
Well, I mean, but nothing where they gonna come get your gun, they gonna come break in your house and take your gun.
Not yet.
No.
Well, there's some crazy stuff in there. Of course, it's
Yeah,
all
but our
been
legislators say that
state.
there's nothing, after you speak to them, they say, are you kidding? There's nothing.
But
So
there
if
has
that
been-
ever comes to fruition, and there's nothing there's nothing those that the counties have passed, they'll tell you,
We're not
we
gonna
talked.
change a thing. But now the
They can't
state
do
will.
nothing.
Yeah.
It's just it's symbolic. It's all symbolic.
Well, now, getting back to Virginia, some of that's real stuff, though, where they're banning indoor
But the
firearms.
counties can't do that. The county has nothing to say about that.
We don't get to make those
Yeah.
decisions. That's preempted by the state.
Yeah.
But we can.
So if you want to do a resolution, give it to Kevin and Jim Davis. Well, that's who needs a resolution, not us.
I think if you're concerned about the issue, and if the public's concerned about the issue, they should be aware that there have been a number of bills introduced into the state legislature that are very similar to the very laws that have been introduced, and some of which have been passed in the state of Virginia. There are multiple bills in our state legislature right now. I don't know that they're going anywhere. The indication I've gotten is they're not going anywhere. But the reality of it is, the real argument, if you want to be heard on either side of this issue, the place to do that is before the legislature at this time. And if it doesn't come out to suit you, then you've got the chance to go to court and deal with it there. Either side.
Say something briefly on that. Mr. Tank.
Sure, go ahead. Chris.
Just in hearing you talk, I don't follow I mean, I'm good with the Second Amendment, hope we keep it, everything's fine, except for the parts that aren't, but we're not gonna fix that with the resolution one way or the other. I guess what I would say, if I was going to, because there seems to be some struggling as to what this should say, and should we say, and are we saying it for meaning, or are we saying it for symbolism? What I'm sitting here thinking is, Ronnie, you asked the question, how many are there? If I couldn't sit down in front of that list and write a resolution about how I felt about all 26, I don't know that I could pick any one of them out and try to do it. So, just sort of my thought on it is, if I was gonna do one, I would be prepared to do. If I was gonna take a position about anyone, symbolically or otherwise, I would be prepared to take a position on all of them.
When you have constitutional scholars that can't agree, you know, you're really in.
Right.
I don't think we're going to do much to help that along.
This resolution is very similar to many of the other resolutions that this board has taken up, in that when it comes right down to where the rubber hits the road, it's meaningless. It's a resolution that is passed because a group of citizens came before this group and requested that support. In the end, that resolution had no legal binding. It meant it was not going to hold anybody's feet to the ground. It was just a statement that this board took up through guidance from legal counsel and said that we support whatever this cause is through this resolution. And this one is no different than any of the others.
Oh, it's much different. Well, this is about the Constitution.
Let me finish,
There's
Ronnie.
never been
Let me
one year
finish,
about
Ronnie.
the
Let me finish,
Constitution.
Ronnie.
He's
So we can bat it around all we want, but that's what it boils down to, is are we gonna support this resolution or take this resolution up? I'm not saying support, I'm saying take it up like we would any other resolution, and ask council to look at it and determine whether or not it's even something that we should take up, and then if it is, determine what the wording of that should be. Then this body would determine through a vote whether or not we would support it. And to me, it needs to be vetted through the same process as all these other resolutions that's come before us. And I'm not taking away one bit from what Ronnie's saying, or Gary, or Jimmy, or Paul, or anybody else is saying their opinion about it. All I'm saying is that we should see it through with the same fairness that we have all the others.
Keep the
that's come
process the
before.
same.
Absolutely.
And
all
I don't
I'm
have an issue with that. I think what led off this conversation tonight is I still haven't seen anything, just like you stated or whatever, but I don't understand. I can appreciate it, but I don't understand why I've got to do it when I've already feel like I've already done it. So, but anyway. Well, I guess we'll listen to everyone next week, and I've got my timer sitting here, so we'll be ready if we have a whole house full. We'll go
Does
through
the
it.
board
So-
have any corrections to me, one way or the other, to prepare anything for your consideration?
I didn't hear anything tonight. I think
We got someone from Donnie Hope, right?
I've got one from all kinds of
Both
people.
hard copy and email. He brought it by in hard copy, I put it in y'all's mailbox.
I need to check the
And then I
mail.
also emailed it to y'all, forwarded you the email.
You go in the office with me.
Sheriff, you're part of that resolution, I think.
Yeah, I am.
Which one?
And, I mean, when you say
The
I'm
Holden,
part-
the one
whole-
the county employee sent for.
when you say I'm part of it, what you mean
At
is
the bottom of
I'm
that
named in it.
resolution, they're asking you to.
Correct. And I definitely, I've seen a lot of resolutions. It's the only one that I've actually seen that it has my name in it and has me taking the same oath that I stood and took with my family before many of you when I was swore in and have taken since 1993 about supporting the Constitution. But there's a lot of language in there that I don't understand. And I like the idea of what he says about you all giving it to the county attorney to do what you all have him do with any other resolution that you all have presented to you. And then allow him to make a recommendation to you all how you're going to do that. You know, I'm just like you all. All of us in here support the Second Amendment. We're all hunters. We're all own guns. And it is concerning what's going on in other states. And I totally respect the idea. In fact, in December when we first started the Sally Port out here behind, you know, I encouraged Donnie. He told me that he was going to come to you all. And I actually encouraged him and Mr. Hurd, the two people that are involved in it, to talk to you all, to talk to you individually and as a board. And I don't know if that ever happened. I know they came to you as a complete board with a presented resolution. And I respect their opinions. That's great that they feel that they are comfortable enough to come before our board. We live in a great country where you're allowed to do that.
First
And,
Amendment.
That's the
First Amendment.
Absolutely. And so I'm glad, you know, I love it when this place is full. You all know it rarely has people in here except for the media and maybe a department head or two. So I love it when people come. Because unfortunately what you see in the news the next day sometimes isn't exactly the same as what we saw here the night of the commission meeting. I have nothing against our local media, but when you sit down and you write or edit or whatever, and don't have the whole story in it, sometimes a word or two left out can change a whole meaning. So I'm glad when people are here. That's how our government works. And I'll be short. Sorry, Paul. I know you're in a hurry.
Yeah.
But I support this. I'm not saying I support this resolution. I support the Second Amendment and all the other amendments that go along with it. I support the Constitution. I took an oath. I wear my badge and my gun every day and put my life on the line to protect everybody, and I'll continue to do so. It doesn't make a difference to me whether you write a resolution, sign a resolution, swear to a resolution. I'm going to continue to do my job, and I will continue to support these people.
She made that oath.
Absolutely. Putting my hand on the most important document ever written, called the Holy Bible. And I raise my hand to the good Lord above to swear that I do that, and I'll continue to do that.
Motion to, I guess, adjourn.
We're going to adjourn till, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we adjourn this meeting until our next regularly scheduled meeting, which is February the 11th, 2020, at 5 West Main Street.
Got a second by Commissioner Shields, all in favor? Aye. All right, guys.